down. We the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. Ha. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Ha. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard UFL Week 3. We've got some good games lined up for today. We had some good games last weekend also, but I think today's slate's looking pretty good. Smokey, how are you doing?
I am good. I am better than the Roughnecks right now, Roughnecks fans at least, because that team is going nowhere fast. And I called it last week. You actually mentioned it also, that the loser of this game is going to be the worst team in the UFL at this time, and they absolutely are. Jarrett Garantano is injured, and they're playing Reese Anat, which actually may be a step up at this point, but Curtis Johnson does not have that team firing on all cylinders, and it doesn't look like there's a win coming up for them soon, looking over their schedule there. Really bad times in Houston there. But other than that, I am doing well. How are you, Alex?
Oh, do you want to know? Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
I'm better at Renegades fans.
Oh, and
because Renegades fans claim to be a better team than the Battlehawks last week.
They are.
And that turned out to be a lie.
No, it's not.
Now, the power rankings after week 1 said they were, and I said it was a lie after week 1, and it turns out it was a lie.
I struggled. I almost put them ahead of the Battlehawks in my power rankings this week. I almost did it. That is a better team than the Battlehawks.
No.
Sorry. Even though it played out the way it was, and that was a great shootout, I still think the Renegades are better. I think the Renegades are going to win the XFL.
The Renegades are going to win this league.
Yeah, well, maybe not the whole league, but their division.
Oh, the XFL division.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The XFL division with the Battlehawks in it.
Yes.
With the Brahmas in it.
Man, when they play in Houston, they're going to beat the Battlehawks. I'm sure of it. Like, the crowd played a big part of that win for the Battlehawks, for sure. I mean, that was great to see, though, with 40,000 people showing up.
It's amazing.
Yeah, if only the Memphis Showboats could get a fan base like that going. But yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to it, though.
Yeah, I'm for the time being better than Renegades fans. As for the Roughnecks, so yeah, also tough. But I mean, it wasn't like they were getting rolled and completely blown out by the defenders either. Like, it was a pretty even match, right? And you could probably chuck it up to 1 or 2 plays that made the difference. So I don't think there's a team this year that's like the Orlando Guardians of last year, just or the Pittsburgh Maulers of the first USFL, like just this god-awful team that's like so much worse than everyone. I don't think we have that, and that means the league's pretty balanced. You would expect to have a couple of 0-2, couple of 2-0 teams after 2 weeks, so that's, I think, completely fine. I think we are pretty even keel in that regard. But yeah, Texas not looking too good aside from the Brahmas. But going into this week, I will have a couple of games I think that will dictate the direction for some of these teams. Like, for some of them, these are like very early sort of this is the outlook for the rest of the season kinds of games facing some of these teams. So I'm curious to see what you think about them. I'm curious to see what people listening think about them. Before we get into it, though, Smokey, our standings for the whole season, or the first 2 weeks. What is our prediction looking like?
Well, I don't really want to talk about that. We can just move on.
Oh, you seemed eager to talk about it. In fact, you brought it up last week when you were winning, so I'm going to have to insist.
Well, here's the thing. There were 2 teams that absolutely should have won, that were the better teams that lost last week, and those 2 are the ones that I picked. And so it's not really good for me. I got 1 pick correct last week. You actually got all 4. You are so lucky picking those underneath teams that actually won somehow, or some ref ball was involved and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so you got 4, I got 1 last week, bringing the total 3 for me and 5 for you.
All right, looks a lot better. Don't you think maybe the causality is like the other way around? You know, you predicted those teams and therefore they should have won, not the other way.
I do worry about that, absolutely, because you watch them play and you're like, wow, these two teams are better. The two teams that I declare I am a fan of, they are better than the teams they played last week. But they did not win.
Big shock that it's exactly the teams you're a fan of.
Exactly.
They're always better. When they lose, they shouldn't have lost. That's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I
think that happens to a lot of fans of a lot of teams.
Yeah, well, maybe I should I'm going to declare them my enemy teams. Those two teams, I hate them from now on. I hope they lose every game.
Okay, that's the Boats and Renegades, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, I can promise you one of them is going to lose this year. They're probably both going to lose this week, actually. There's a pretty good chance they will. We'll see.
We'll see which ones I pick.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We will see about that. Let's look at week 3 here. Got some interesting games. And I guess let's start off with the Renegades. Renegades are hosting the Defenders on Saturday.
Yeah, Luis Perez was so good in that game. And it's heartbreaking that they lost that game because he was so good.
Second best quarterback on the field, too.
Nah. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. You could say what you want about the veteranness of McCarron there, but we'll talk about him later. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, Jordan Ta'amu, he got the win, so I guess I can still call him Mr. XFL, but he is not playing well at all. He is making like 50% of his passes in the last 2 games. I feel like there's something wrong with him, and he may get replaced before the end of the season. Like, wins are wins, and that's all people look at in the end sometimes, but it's not looking good for Jordan Ta'amu. Cameron Harris looked good at running back. No Abram Smith in that game, which didn't really matter in the end anyway. Kiki Kuti was the number 1 receiver on the week, which is good. And Briley Moore McKinney, the tight end, looked really decent for what little bit of work that he had. The Arlington Renegades, though, Luis Perez is, just like every single season, the most accurate passer in the spring leagues, whichever one he's playing for, and he's doing it again. Davion Smith and Letty Brown are still splitting the backfield there, and I really think I feel like they'd be better if they picked one and just went with it. They just keep swapping them in and out, and it's not really working out on the ground, but Sal Cannella looked amazing with the catches he was tossed, and he had a great touchdown catch too. Bob Stoops has to get this team in line. And the defense has to hold up. That's the bottom line, too. The defense is going to have to hold up. Doesn't matter what your offense is doing if you let the other team score on every drive. As for this game right here. Oh, there was one other thing. DeAndre Baker was out there for the Defenders. There are so many good defensive players in this league that should be in the NFL or were in the NFL at some point in time. DeAndre Baker is another one. That's a Georgia boy, and if it wasn't for like some kind of home invasion robbery thing that he was involved in, he probably still would be in the NFL, and he's good enough to do it. He looked great out there. This game right here, though, I am going back to the well because I know this is a top 4 team in the UFL. Arlington Renegades at home.
You're going back to the well that has been dry since week 0.
Well, it's going to pay off one day.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Jordan Ta'amu, okay. Illustrious spring league career, we'll give him that. He's doing the best he can, minus he's thrown a pick 6 and almost broke the team's back twice in back-to-back games to open the season, which isn't great. But other than that, he's still the focal point of the offense. No Abram Smith is probably the death sentence for the Defenders, given how important he was to them last year. I mean, he carried the team. He carried the team on his back. That was their offense. Their primary go-to offense was the running game, and they had very NFL reminiscent NFL style running game dialed up, and Abram Smith played it to perfection. Now he's probably out for the season, and doesn't bode well for DC. Defensively, last week they made the play when they needed to, and they were about to lose to the Roughnecks, by the way. That big forced fumble, and they recovered it, and somehow they ran out the time last second. But it was a close affair. I have very little confidence in either one of these teams, but what I'm going to do is, because I have so little confidence, I will extend the olive branch just a little here. I'm going to take your Renegades. I will give them their first win. I don't really much believe in either of these teams. I'll say this: neither of them are top 4 teams in the UFL. That's pipe dream. And the Defenders are favored by 2 points on the road. That, to me, however you want. To me, it's more like it's close to a coin flip, right? But the record, okay, you give it to the Defenders, fine. I will take the Renegades. I'll say Luis Perez probably will not make the back-breaking mistake. Tamu is more likely, or seems more likely this year, to make the back-breaking mistake. I will go with the Renegades. Doesn't mean I'll believe in them. Doesn't mean they're a top 4 team, and they are not making the playoffs either. But I'm taking them to win as a sign of gratitude to your favorite team. You haven't had a whole lot of luck picking favorite teams, except from the Stars in the very first UFL. After that, it hasn't been good. You haven't had a lot of luck picking favorite teams in these spring leagues, huh? So I'll give you a win here. I'll let the Renegades win this one.
Oh, they're going to.
How about?
No doubt.
Oh, okay. Now I want to switch because you're so cocky about it. I'll leave it. I'll leave it, but I reserve the right to still gloat when they lose anyway because you've been more confident in me.
Hey, we're going to revisit this after the Renegades play the Battlehawks at home. We're going to revisit that take right there that you just had.
Sure. When the 1-6 Renegades meet the 5-2 Battlehawks in Arlington, we are going to revisit it for sure.
When they win the XFL division.
Oh yeah, right. They might come last, actually.
No, not a doubt. No doubt at all. No.
I think they right now they're last. This is if they lose this one, they're coming last because this is Defenders. Then there'll be two points behind Defenders already. They'll be presumably 2 behind the Battlehawks, or even 3 behind the Brahmas.
Not worried at all though. They won the XFL last year after only winning 4 games.
They did. That is right. That's correct. That's because their division, the XFL South, was a train wreck.
By beating who though? The DC Defenders.
They did, yeah, that is correct. That is true. Good for me. I didn't like the Defenders one bit last year. I was rooting for them. Underdogs in the championship. Good thing they won. They're not the same team. They thoroughly got handled by the Stallions. The season opener to show who was the best spring league team. Speaking of the Stallions.
Thoroughly. All right, well, we'll move on.
Pretty good. Speaking of the Stallions, though, they are, unsurprisingly, the juggernauts of the league, as it looks, and they are hosting the Showboats at home in the home opener in Birmingham.
See, that's part of the problem, is they're running the gauntlet right here at the front of the schedule. And the Stallions were the first ones they faced, and that's the problem here. But anyway, Showboats should have won that game also. They should have beaten the Brahmas if it wasn't for the defense falling apart halfway through the fourth quarter. They had that game wrapped up. Now, give it, outside of the very first drive, they were not making touchdowns. There was some bad John DeFilippo calls in there, like 4th and 2. Why don't you just go for it? Don't take the kick. But I guess he thought he had that game in hand, and then the defense was absolutely gassed at the end of the game, and they had nothing left, and they couldn't stop anything. But Case Cookus is not passing well. There's no doubt about that. He can still run well, and he does that very well. Darius Victor had a ton of work. Not a ton to show for it. What did he get? 3.2 yards per carry. I don't know. I think there's some things that need to go a little better. I do think they are better than the Brahmas. However, whether it's Adrian Martinez or Matt Corral out there, this team is so stacked. No Jay Sternberger last week. I will say that. I don't know what's going on with Jay Sternberger, but there is a new tight end MVP of the league that we will get to later. Either way, like you said, it's the Juggernauts. I think the Memphis Showboats are a really good team, top 3, but they're not going to beat the Stallions. Stallions at home.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you on one thing. I think the Boats might be a top 3 team. I think they should. This is the one where I'm close to saying, yeah, they should have won against the Brahmas. Now, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Doesn't matter. Retroactively, ultimately, in the end, they didn't win, even though they were the only team scoring for the first 50 minutes of the game. But ultimately, they had less points, and that comes down to you can't make a single stop in the fourth quarter when you need to. You just need to make a run and you're fine. Even when you do, you get that interception, the takeaway. You don't ice the game after it, and also you just kind of stop scoring in the second half yourself. You don't find the end zone anymore. So all those things come together. Yeah, they should have won. They were the better team for most of the game, but they didn't score enough points to make it so. Case Kukis is the center of the offense. He's the main rusher, which I know the team doesn't like to see, but at least he is effective on the ground. He can do it. However, I'm gonna pick the Stallions. I think everybody knew I was gonna pick the Stallions. Now, here's one thing I don't like about the Stallions. I'm not a big fan of this quarterback rotation system they've got going on. And I'm a bit surprised, but I see why they have this amount of talent on the roster. And by the way, Jamar Smith, the best player in the USFL year one, is still on that roster. He's quarterback 3 on that roster now. He's not even getting starting time. That tells you just how good that quarterback room is, with 2.5 NFL caliber quarterbacks. Adrian Martinez also being a huge talent who should have made it to the NFL if not for injury, and might in the future. So for the Stallions, I want to say, after this one, man, decide on one. It doesn't really matter. Like, both Corral and Martinez will get it done. They're both good enough. I'm not a big fan of this whole rotational thing. I know it's working out for now, but maybe it's just superstition on my part. Maybe it's like my old school like NFL thinking or whatever. In spring leagues, you can get away with a lot more things. Like they also bring out the T formation and like the run game fits from the 40s and stuff, and it seems to work because it's spring league, and it's cool to see. But I don't love having to like every drive I'll have to see who's the quarterback. Like, I want a constant in the huddle. That's an extension of the quarterback, is that one of the big jobs of the quarterback is that you are the one constant in the huddle no matter what, and you always know what's going on. And for that to change drive by drive or even play by play, to me, it just seems like an unnecessary distraction. And I know you want to find the right guy, but honestly, both of them are the right guy, kind of. You got a great starter and a great backup like the Stallions have had for the last 2 years also. Just pick one is my only thing. I don't want to see this rotation eventually becoming like something that bites them in the end, but they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. Defense is phenomenal. Man, this defense is full of stars, huh? I could go on about the Stallions, I think, all day, but I'm going to pick them to win, staying undefeated, though this will be probably their toughest test so far. The Boats are the best team they've played thus far, I'll say that. The Renegades were not that much of a challenge. The Panthers were more of a challenge than they needed to be. That's because the Stallions could not score when they got into the red zone. That made their own life a lot more difficult than it needed to be. I think they'll go past the Boats, but they have to start scoring touchdowns. That's the one thing I need to see improved. Roughnecks and Panthers.
Speaking of quarterback situations, Jarrett Garantano was the starter for them. He started this game, got a back injury very early in the game, and Reed Sanat came in there and took over. And it almost feels like Reed Sanat might be better than Jarrett Garantano. I kind of wanted to see Jarrett Garantano because he's a name from the past that I watched play a lot in college. I wanted him to succeed, but this may spell the end if Reed Sanat continues to play well. Kiki Chisholm became the wide receiver star there for him. Still no Mark Thompson. TJ Pledger is still the guy at running back. I think they could do much better at running back when Mark Thompson gets there. However, he is 29 years old. And coming off of an injury like that, I guess we can't really pencil in Mark Thompson just to be back to his former self when he comes back. Running backs fall off so easily. We'll see how it works out. TJ Pledger may end up just being the guy for the rest of the season. On the other side, heartbreaking loss for the Panthers also. Hey, that was the battle of the Kikis last week. Just pointing that out. EJ Perry is not much of a passer at all. He is a great running quarterback. He can't pass the ball at all. Wes Hills came from the number one running back in the season, or in week 1, to almost non-effective in this game. Trey Quinn has become the number one wide receiver, and I think he is one of the most talented wide receivers in this league. Other than that, not a lot of tight end use for either of these teams last week. Cole Hicatini, I think, may have gotten one catch. Yeah, one catch. As for this game, though, I don't really know. I don't believe in the Panthers as much as I wanted to after week 1. But I guess it's a symptom of who you're playing. I think the Roughnecks are the worst team in the league, regardless of their quarterback situation. Gonna pick the Panthers at home.
I do agree with your conclusion. I'll agree. I'm also picking the Panthers to win this one. I think the Panthers, like last year, is quickly becoming this symptom of, good defense, bad offense. And it always feels like they're cursed to be this mediocre team because they just can't take advantage of the defensive performances they get. And, they lost by 1 score to the juggernaut of the league. The Stallions drove into the red zone 6 times. They scored 1 touchdown in those drives. So that is bad. Or for the Panthers side of things, that's really good. That's great defensively. They brought back that elite defensive front mostly that they had last year. They somehow got Breland Speaks and Frank Gindon. Neither of them stuck in the NFL. They got them both back. And both of those were candidates for Defensive Player of the Year last year, if you remember. Both of them back. And the defense is great for the Panthers. The offense is astoundingly mediocre with EJ Perry. He had that one huge bomb that went for a touchdown. That was their only explosive offensive play for the whole game, and yet they only lost by 1 score to the Stallions. So the Panthers have that potential. The backbone is there if they can get the offense rolling somehow, and they tried, right? They brought in the backup quarterback for 1 drive. It didn't work at all. It was terrible, and they brought EJ Perry right back in, and he continued to be mediocre, and it was fine. You beat bad teams and you're going to lose to the good teams. That's sort of the path I'm seeing the Panthers on right now. The Roughnecks are a bad team, and therefore the Panthers are going to win. For Houston, I see for them, I think they have the best path to being the worst team in the league. And honestly, I hope they lose every game, and then they realize they're cursed, and then they bring back the Gambler's name next year, and then they'll do better. Because the Roughnecks don't belong in the USFL, they belong in the XFL, and the Gamblers are the actual team with tradition, so they should. Nothing speaks against bringing that name back, especially if they have a bad year and need to rebrand. So that's my 1-year fantasy projection there. Panthers win and get it done at home. Move to 2-1. And then maybe the most exciting one of the weekend here, aside from maybe the Boats and Stallions, but this one I'm interested in: Battlehawks and the Brahmas.
Yeah, this one's tough. Also, I've really gone back and forth ever since I looked at this schedule as to who I think is going to win this game. And I really don't know. Right up to this point, I have no clue. But let me talk through it here. AJ McCarron played well. I don't think...
Best quarterback performance of the weekend by a good bit.
No, that was Luis Perez. In a losing effort.
He's better in every stat. They played against each other. AJ won. He has better passer rating, more touchdowns, more yards.
Whoa, hold on. Let me bring up this box score. Okay, he had a better passer rating, but I would take
115.
21 for 29 over 19 for 29.
I'd like 248 yards over 230.
That was a shootout, though. It
was, yeah.
It was like they went back and forth. I really feel like those two teams were pretty much dead even, regardless of the hyping, the hyperbole I like to do because I picked that team. That was a dead even match, and they went back and forth throughout the whole thing, and it was great to see. That was the best game of the week last week. Mateo Durant has emerged, and kudos to Anthony Betch for placing Mateo Durant as the number 1 now, because Wayne Gallman just was not getting it done. Yeah, he's the bigger name, but he was awful in week 1, and he was not great in the little bit of work he got last week. So it's really good job putting Mateo Durant out there, and he was great. I believe he went over 100 yards. Darius Shepard, Hakeem Butler, you know how good those guys are. No tight end work this past week. Jake Sutherland was the guy week 1. He didn't get a ton of work, but he got a little bit. But if you want to talk about tight ends, the tight end MVP of the league happens to be on the San Antonio Brahmas, Cody Latimer. When Chase Gabers and Cody Latimer have a connection, like I said last week, if they get that connection, it's going to be deadly. And it absolutely was in that fourth quarter. Cody Latimer is the best tight end. Regardless of what you want to say about Jay Sternberger, he was a ghost this past week. Cody Latimer got all the work. And John Lovett and Anthony McFarland, I'm not a fan of these split backfields. They pick one and go with it because I think you'll get more out of it, but they don't like doing that. John Trey Kirkland and Marquez Stevenson both looked really good for one quarter because this is a one-quarter team. And that's what makes it tough because I want to believe in them. They're 2-0, but they won really weird. And as I said, I think that the Battlehawks and Renegades are dead. Even how good exactly are the Battlehawks? I don't know. I think it'll shake out in the coming weeks. But I guess I'm going to go with the veteran quarterback here. Even though they're on the road, I will take the Battlehawks.
So when Cody Latimer, he was the best tight end in the XFL? The Guardians, right? Yeah. Last year also, by the way. Mm-hmm. When he came into the NFL first, do you know who he was catching passes from?
Was it... It was Manning.
Yep,
right?
the A.J. McCarron of the NFL, Peyton Manning. He was catching passes from. And he just so happens to be playing against the Peyton Manning of spring football this weekend when the Battlehawks travel down to San Antonio to play the Brahmas. Now, Brahmas they have the better record. They're undefeated. That's true. Chase Garbers is playing great. I've called him the Brock Purdy of spring football because he kind of came out of nowhere and he's winning. And he's putting up good stats. I mean, he's put up 2 excellent games. He's shown that he can win in the clutch. He can make it happen late. Of course, that happened because, the first 3 quarters he wasn't able to do anything, which is sort of a downside and sort of his own fault. The Brahmas are undefeated. That being said, A.J. McCarron's the best quarterback in the league, isn't he? I mean, he's looking pretty good. I think he, right now, is probably the favorite to win MVP. If we do the MVP power rankings, with the Stallions just running the split quarterback, McCarron, to me, is the one taking the lead. Ahead of, interestingly enough, Chase Garbers for now. So those two, this is an early MVP battle. Maybe if Case Cookus could win more games, maybe he can find himself in the conversation. A lot of guys can find themselves in the conversation because we're still early in the season. But right now, these are the 2 best quarterbacks in the league so far, battling it out. The Peyton Manning of the USFL of spring football with A.J. McCarron. I'm gonna. Like you said it from last week, right? They played well. Both did. Perez, McCarron. Peyton Manning tends to win the shootouts, and so did A.J. McCarron. Just a little bit better, and the stats show it, and the tape showed it, and I think it'll stay that way. The Battlehawks are one of the more popular teams in spring football. Always have the best attendance, in part because they bring in the players. And A.J. McCarron is a big reason for why that team is so popular and why it's probably the most liked team and the most historic team in XFL or modern XFL history. I'm going to take the Battlehawks to win this one, keep it even, and keep the XFL division wide open. Now, if they don't win, of course, and this is also a little bit like the outlook into the future there, the Brahmas move to 3-0 with how weak both the Defenders and Renegades have looked. The Brahmas are on a pretty good trajectory to take that division, which I don't think anyone predicted really ahead of the season. I sure did not. I don't know if you had them on your radar.
Not at all. But I don't think they do that.
No, me neither. I'm taking the Battlehawks to win as well. And by the way, Battlehawks, believe it or not, they are favored by 2 points. On the road with the worst record. I think that's the pull of A.J. McCarron. That's the pull of Ka Islam.
The Brahmas may be the Roughnecks of last season, where they kept winning. They were constantly winning, but you could watch them and go, well, they're not as good as that record. And then it all crumbled by the end of the season. That could be the Brahmas here. If they somehow pull off this win, I don't think they do, but if they were to, people are gonna notice, like, yeah, you're winning, but you're not that good. So,
But the reason the Roughnecks were winning last year is because they were in the South.
true.
And the South was awful. I mean, the XFL South was probably the worst division we've ever seen in spring football. And they started 4-0 because they were playing South teams, and then they started playing against the North, and they got beaten game after game. Now, the Brahmas they just beat the Showboats, right? That's, first of all, that's a team in the other division, so that's a show of power. And the Boats in general are not a bad team at all. They're pretty good.
No, not at all.
So that's an impressive win. You have to give them credit for that.
That's why these power rankings are so hard this early in the season. Because,
That's true. But speaking of power rankings, I'll let you go. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing, is I've been flip-flopping. Like, I've literally wrote out power rankings 3 times since last night, and I still don't. There's one thing we can all agree on, is that the Stallions go number 1, the Roughnecks go number 8. In between is really tough. I want to put the Showboats at number 2, but then I'm like, well, they got beat by the Brahmas. Should I put the Brahmas at number 2? They don't look like a number 2 team. Where did the Battlehawks fall? I still think the Renegades are better than the Battlehawks, in my opinion. At least dead even. Because watching that game, it was just whoever scores last is going to win. So I guess right now, I'm going to go with record over the eye test. I'm going to say Stallions at number 1. Brahmas at number 2, then the Showboats, then the Battlehawks, then the Renegades, Panthers, Defenders, and Roughnecks.
Okay, so to me, I will agree with you on one thing and one thing only, which is that these power rankings are hard to do after 2 weeks. A lot of teams are even, and everyone's very close to each other. That's the thing. We didn't have that in other spring leagues. Like, you could match anyone's number 2 or 3 team against anyone else's number 7 or 6 team and say, hey, this could go either way. Stallions 1, yes. Roughnecks 8, yes. Those we agree on. After that, it does get dicey. And last week I set this precedent of doing power rankings based on what I expect to happen. And this week we will get sort of these top 4 teams in the league all playing each other. So we'll see the hierarchy after that. So I'm going to give my power rankings based on what I think is going to happen this weekend in the long-term future, not based on record. So Stallions at 1. Okay, I am not a fan of them anymore. I'm officially just a Stallions fan, but Battlehawks at 2. Okay, Battlehawks 2, Brahmas 3, Boats at 4. I know it sounds crazy to put the Boats at 4 because they were, 1 point away from being potentially number 2, but it's tough, I can't put them over the Brahmas right now, even though they might be the better team in the long run. Right now they haven't been. Brahmas 3, Boats 4, Panthers at 5. I will graciously give the Renegades number 6, and I mean graciously, because I think they'll beat the Defenders, but whoa if they don't. They should, by their record, be 7. I will put them at 6. I'm overrating the Renegades. I'm saying that explicitly because I don't want crap for it. I am overrating the Renegades. Defenders 7, Roughnecks at 8. Now you're trying to tell me that the Renegades should be contending with the Battlehawks, which are my number 2. And the Renegades, which are my number 6, should be number 7.
Did you
so
not
that
watch
just
the
tells
game?
me that
Like,
I watched the game.
They were dead even. So if you're gonna put them at number 2, you're gonna put them.
But so were the Boats and Brahmas, right?
Yeah. That's why I said it was so tough, because those 4 teams are really tough for me to rank.
These 2 teams that were also pretty even. The Defenders and Roughnecks were pretty even. That was one play that decided the game ultimately.
Yeah, that's why I have them at 7 and 8.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's tough. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can, like, putting the Renegades over the Battlehawks, like saying they're close is one thing, but over them or even suggesting they could be over them, that to me makes no sense.
Well, I have them
because they
close.
just played.
Yeah, and that's why for right now I have the Battlehawks ahead of the Renegades.
Yeah.
I just think both of those teams are better than the Panthers, but I couldn't knock the Showboats down because watching them play, you're like, they have to be the number 2, right? Like, regardless of the defense getting gas and giving that game away at the very end, That was the second place team in this league for 3.5 quarters of that game.
Can't put them over the Hawks.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
I did.
I can be talked into putting the Boats over San Antonio if they hadn't just played and lost.
Yeah, see, that's the problem is I watch the teams and I'm like, these teams are better, but they lost. So what can you do? As for right now, I'm just sticking with this.
For the Boats, that might be true. For the other one, preposterous.
No. How can you not say they were even after watching that game? It was
close to even.
It was literally back and forth the entire game. It was one team scores, the next team answers, and it went on like that for the entire game.
Yeah, it was a close game, but the Renegades were blown out once already. The Battlehawks have only had close games.
Yeah, but that was because the Stallions have the best defense in the entire league. Look at the names that are on that defense.
Yeah, sure.
They're blowing out everybody.
I mean, okay, I'll make the argument for the Renegades here. I'll make this argument. By my calculation, the Renegades have played the best two teams in the league. The hardest part of their schedule are behind them. So maybe in 3 weeks they're going to be 3-2 and they're going to be looking just fine. Having already played the Hawks and the Stallions, they'll be all right. Could be. Mm-hmm. But it's time to show it when they kick off on Saturday, but they better win against DC, because if they don't, it'll be an issue. And this is a grudge match, by the way, because this is the XFL Championship rematch, and the Jordan Te'amu is going to be smelling blood.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And I will agree with you. If the Renegades lose this, then I have to knock them down. I have to say they're 7 or 8 at this point, but they should not lose this game. They are a better team. And
they should.
Bob Stoops is probably the most... Well, I was going to say the most tenured coach, but that's got to be Wade Phillips. Yeah. But Bob Stoops should be up at the top. Like, he's got that coaching record. I mean, he won national championships with Oklahoma. The guy's been around forever.
Yeah. And, a lot of good coaches in the league.
Yeah, there is. That was one thing about the UFL, is they picked the best coaches from both leagues and threw them together. And there's not a bad coach in this league. It's not like last year where the XFL would throw just former players out there and like, hey, you go coach a team. And then you end up with the Maulers of last year, the Vipers, just coaching was the issue for those teams.
Yeah.
But
I think maybe coaching is also a reason why this league is like they're all close together.
Mm-hmm. And the defensive stars also in this league is keeping the scoring down, which may be bad for TV ratings in the end, to tell you the truth. But there's a lot of defensive stars like Reuben Foster, Vic Beasley, Taco Charleston, DeAndre Baker. There is a ton of Frank Ginder, a ton of stars on this defense, on the defense for the entire league. But it's keeping the scoring down for right now, and I hope that doesn't hurt the ratings in the end, because I want this league to succeed.
That is fair. That is fair. We'll see how it turns out. I have good faith, and I have high expectations for the league. So far, I think it's the best spring football we've seen, just throughout, because there's no just garbage teams. I think both in the USFL and XFL the last years, the advantage obviously being that we get twice the amount of teams and twice the amount of games, but at least now we only get good teams. So maybe it's the right move, consolidate it into 8 and then expand from there if things go well and you get this influx of college players that are interested in playing in the spring leagues. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is the right move. I'm pretty optimistic about it. Also optimistic about the Battlehawks being number 2 team, though not that that's my favorite team anymore, but if you get to pick 2 teams, I get to pick 2 teams as well.
Yeah, might as well.
You
gotta have a backup team.
You gotta have a backup team, exactly, in case your team sucks, which won't happen to me. Luckily, hasn't happened to me yet in the USFL, but it's always good to have that. You never know. Maybe all 3 quarterbacks get hurt, and then the Stallions are in some trouble. So it's good to have the backup team. Mm-hmm. Power rankings, very difficult. I believe that my power rankings are going to be sustainable into next week. I think they'll carry well into next week. After we have these results, I think my power rankings will be stronger than they are now. That's why I'm making them. and hopefully that will be the case when we talk about it next week. How many of these games did we, if any, disagree? Did we all pick the same?
We picked the same ones on every
four
one.
games.
It's kind of hard to catch up when that happens.
That's true. But you could have picked the Defenders. They're favored. Yeah.
Why?
It's a favorite.
I'm gonna.
If you want to play the odds to make up points.
I'm going to pick the team that I think is the best. And I had no idea.
True.
I thought you were going to pick the Defenders, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I guess my logic was the same as yours. I feel like the Renegades are probably the better team.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see them prove it, though.
Unfortunately, Jordan Te'amu was playing not so great, so Luis Perez is the better quarterback.
Yeah, that is. I'll agree with that for this year so far. But let's see how it goes head to head. And I am also inviting everyone listening to be free to leave their power rankings or quarterback rankings, MVP rankings, whatsoever in the comments. For me, MVP right now is McCarron. Power rankings we gave earlier. Who's your MVP?
Probably the kicker for the Panthers, Jake Bates, who made 60-yard field goals twice.
Man. There's a lot of people said like if he like the smartest thing for him would be to stop playing right now.
Yeah.
If he does not if he does not attempt another kick, he is a shoo-in for NFL training camp spot.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Fall. Yeah.
He does need to make another kick. He can only possibly hurt his chances now.
Yeah. But
you're right, Jake Bates, man.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, it's going to be a quarterback, obviously. Or I mean, I guess it could be a wide receiver. I mean, right now, A.J. McCarron's probably the best.
McCarron.
Yeah, probably the best quarterback. I'm looking through these wide receivers to see if there's anyone, or maybe even a running back that could.
You could
take
argue
that.
Aitman, but he's like good because of McKinnon.
Yeah.
McCarron, sorry.
Yeah, McCarron. Yeah, I mean, maybe CJ Marable. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's AJ McCarron at this point in time.
Yeah, it's got to be McCarron, right? When in doubt, quarterback at AJ McCarron.
Be cool to see Cody Latimer take it in the end, though.
Oh, tight end! Wow.
Yeah. How many times has that ever happened in the history of football?
I don't know if it's ever happened. Maybe like Mike Ditka or someone. I don't know. I have to look that up. If tight end ever won a league MVP ever.
Yeah, exactly.
If it happened, it must have been like in the 70s or earlier.
It would have to be. And I don't even think they were catching that many passes during those days, though. So it's not the flashy position.
Never has been. That's right. We will see. For now, I'm going McCarron. But if you're watching, let us know what you think in the comments. Give us your predictions for this week. Power rankings, MVP rankings, anything's appreciated. Maybe I'll start publishing the poll this or next week to vote on MVP. Because now we're getting a decent idea as we're getting a few games into the season. So then we can analyze every week what people are thinking. So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. But as for today, do you have anything to add, Smokey?
That's it for this week.
All right, then we'll see you in the next one.
Deuces.
Check the scoreboard.